pesos. Upload natin ang 5 parts bukas tuwing Sabado. Family Feud.
5:40 p.m.
Hindi ka ng area na ba Channel 25 para sa ating Plus Sports. Manood, maglaro at manalo rin na sa Pagkakunod page dito sa PAI.
Our one-of-a-kind JKM Burger Pizza, the perfect fusion of flavors that
Nagmamano pa.
That's okay.
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has called for a quick and simple trade deal with the U.S. at a summit of EU leaders in Brussels. The EU faces a July 9th deadline to come to an agreement with the White House or potentially face 50% tariffs. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said all options were on the table to negotiate a deal. Iran's supreme leader says his regime delivered a hard slap to the U.S. and crushed Israel. In his first public statement since the ceasefire with Israel, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei also said the U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities did not achieve much. The White House says the comments by Iran's leader are just designed to save face. Prosecutors in South Korea have released a video of a suspected attack on a Seoul subway train last month. CCTV cameras captured a man throwing flammable liquid on the floor and lighting it. The smoke drifted into adjacent carriages. 6 people were injured. The 67-year-old suspect faces arson and attempted murder charges. This is DW News from Berlin. You'll find much more on our website at dw.com.
Tax bill by the July 4th holiday. Investors worry about a shadow Fed. And Venice gets ready for Jeff Bezos' wedding extravaganza. It's Friday, June 27th. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes every weekday. I'm Tara Oakes in Liverpool. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says there's no intelligence suggesting that Iran's enriched uranium stores were moved before US strikes on major nuclear targets last weekend.
So I'm not aware of any intelligence that I've reviewed that says things were not where they were supposed to be, moved or otherwise.
In his first public remarks since the ceasefire with Israel, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, dismissed President Donald Trump's claims that the US has obliterated Iran's nuclear program. Iran also contradicted the White House on a meeting between the countries soon. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says Tehran is weighing whether negotiations with the United States are still in its interest. He says there's currently no understanding about renewing talks with the US. That's despite Trump's announcement earlier this week that talks were back on the table. Republicans in the US Senate are rushing to pass their version of Trump's big, beautiful tax bill. But while GOP leaders are showing optimism that the bill will become law by the July 4th Independence Day holiday, our politics reporter, David Morgan in Washington, D.C., has been reporting on the hurdles.
To pass this legislation without any input from Democrats, they need to use a procedure called budget reconciliation, which restricts the kind of legislation that can be in the bill. And the Senate parliamentarian is looking at the provisions that have been proposed, and she has identified some of the Medicaid provisions as not qualifying for reconciliation. The knock-on effect of all this could be a delay in the timeline for passing the bill. Senator Thune said that their aim was to potentially pass it on Saturday, which would allow the House of Representatives to take it up next week. But that schedule may slip now, acknowledging that because of the ongoing discussions with the Senate parliamentarian, they may not be able to hold their initial vote on Friday. That pushes everything back.
The dollar is under a lot of pressure this week. A report about a potential shadow Fed chair has investors spooked. Kamal Crimmins is here to shed a bit of light on things. Kamal, what is a shadow Fed exactly?
So the nervousness you're seeing stems from a story in the Wall Street Journal this week saying President Trump may announce his pick to replace Fed Chair Jerome Powell early, perhaps even this summer. Now that's well before Powell's term expires in May, and it would give a Fed chair in waiting the ability to influence market expectations. Now that person would presumably represent Trump's preferences for lower interest rates and could potentially have more influence on the market than Powell. So creating a kind of shadow Fed and undercutting perceptions of the Fed's independence. So potential nominees include former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh, as well as Kevin Hassett, who's the director of the White House's National Economic Council. You've also got current Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in the mix, and current Fed Governor Christopher Waller. That's according to a person familiar with the deliberations.
Wolf kill a spider.
Japan has executed a man who killed 9 people after contacting them on social media. It's the first use of capital punishment in the country in nearly 3 years. Takahiro Shiraishi was dubbed the Twitter killer as he contacted victims via the social media platform. The Trump administration is planning to deport migrant Kilmar Albrego Garcia for a second time. That's according to a lawyer for the administration, who's told a judge they don't plan on sending him back to El Salvador, where he was wrongly deported in March. Deportation will not happen until after Abrego Garcia is tried in federal court on migrant smuggling charges. And Vogue's editor-in-chief, Anna Wintour, says she's stepping down as the editor of a fashion magazine after nearly 40 years. She'll continue as Vogue's global editorial director and chief content officer at Condé Nast, which publishes Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, and GQ. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and journalist Lawrence Sanchez are in Venice for a 3-day wedding extravaganza featuring celebrity guests as well as public protests. Our reporter Sarah Rossi is out and about in Venice. Excuse the seagull sounds on her recording. I'm not jealous at all, honestly.
I am sitting on a bridge over a canal in Venice in a hot night, and I'm not far from the site where Jeff Bezos and Lawrence Sanchez are holding their first party here in Venice for their wedding celebrations. All the ceremonies here in Venice are surrounded by extremely tight security measures. But we know, for instance, that there are 3 parties from Thursday to Saturday. The first one at the cloister of the Madonna dell'Orto church. Madonna dell'Orto is a very beautiful medieval church in the center of Venice. Many of the guests have arrived, such as Microsoft founder Bill Gates, actor Orlando Bloom, Kim and Khloe Kardashian, along with US President Donald Trump's daughter Ivanka.
This will cost.
We can say that the estimated total cost of the wedding celebrations for the couples should be around 48 million euros. And there are many local firms, pastry shops, taxi boat, and so on involved in the organization of that wedding. We still don't know who will be the main chef at the parties, but for example, a historical pastry shop here in Venice has provided typical Venetian biscuits called zaiti and made with maize flour and raisins for the couple's guests.
And there has been some pushback and even some protests around Venice, right?
Bezos is, let's say, a catalyst for all protests, from the environment to those for the growing social gap between rich and poor, to those against the exploitation of workers. And the protests are also unprecedented because no wedding in Venice has ever had such massive media coverage, such high security measures. It is therefore a unique case, even for a city like Venice, accustomed for centuries to hosting kings, emperors, and popes.
It's Friday, so our recommendation is that you tune into our special weekend episode of Reuters World News tomorrow. It's about a trial that's gripped Australia, where the defendant stands accused of murdering 3 of her estranged husband's elderly relatives using toxic mushrooms. That pod will drop on Saturday, and you can catch it wherever you get your podcasts. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favourite podcast player, and we'll be back on Monday with our daily headline show.
That's it for your news updates. To see more stories, open Google News.